6:10 on this Tuesday morning as we check in live with Emily Schmidt, a CNN reporter on the ground in Boston. Emily, where law enforcement officials, both local and federal, have been working through the night. What can you tell us this morning?
Ryan, good morning to you. 24 hours ago, there were thousands of runners preparing for the race. Now the race is almost an afterthought as the focus is solely on this investigation. Have a little new information for you. We have learned from a law enforcement official who says there are no specific suspects at this time. And he also says, this official, that there are no leading theories as to what the motive may have been behind the explosions. It's a short way of saying it's a long way to go in finding out what did cause those explosions yesterday, Ryan. We also know this is not something that's happening simply in Washington. We are told by a White House official that President Obama was briefed on this situation overnight. Also, that a little later this morning, FBI Director Robert Mueller will be at the White House to update President Obama with what is happening with the investigation here. We are expecting to hear from the FBI at a press conference scheduled for a little less than a couple of hours from now. Ryan?
We can understand, of course, that it's an ominous job, a significant task trying to collect evidence in these cases from perhaps civilian cell phones, from packages that were perhaps left around in the course of those attending a marathon as either spectators or competitors. What have you seen when it comes to how evidence is being gathered at this point on the ground?
I mean, you have to think about the enormous amount of information that was there for the taking, abandoned by people who were spectators and runners in the race. They dropped what they had, got out of the area, and law enforcement had to consider every single one of those discarded backpacks or cameras or anything that people dropped a potential threat. So it has been a very painstaking process to sort out what was simply discarded in fear and what could be a potential threat. We have not learned that any of those other parcels that they've investigated were threats. We're still waiting to see details on that. But it is so interesting. There are blocks and blocks and blocks, nearly a mile of blocks that are still cordoned off. We are being told probably that will not be opened up to the public anytime soon. It is still very much considered an active crime scene. Ryan?
Emily, we know that in that area right around Boylston Street, many witnesses described it as a war zone. When it comes to first responders, when it comes to those emergency facilities that were available in Boston, how are those characterizing that emergency response? And do we know if they're feeling overwhelmed still early this morning?
When you think about it, there were 144 victims that we are aware of who were injured in this, 17 of them in critical condition at last count, 3 people that we are aware of who died in this, including, incidentally, who we know to be the youngest victim at this point, an 8-year-old identified as Martin Richard. There is so much information, but because there were so many first responders there to help with the marathon, the silver lining was they were there to help when the unexpected happened.
Thank you very much. CNN's Emily Schmidt joining us live on the ground in Boston this morning as Breakfast Television continues coverage of this story breaking mid-afternoon here in Edmonton. We do know that the 54 runners known to be from the capital region all reportedly safe. Tanara McLean, Courtney Theriault staying on this story through this morning. We'll be back in 2 minutes at 6:14 on Tuesday.